The observation ship hung in the darkness beyond Earth's moon, its advanced sensors recording every detail of human civilization below. Ambassador Zexhai of the Valorian Federation adjusted his viewing console and watched the blue planet with growing satisfaction. After 3 years of careful study, he was finally ready to submit his report to the Galactic Council. Humans, he would write, were exactly the kind of species the galaxy needed more of. His assistant, Sub-Commander Krill, floated beside him reviewing the compiled data. Ambassador, the behavioral patterns are remarkably consistent across all human settlements. They show clear signs of advanced social cooperation without the typical aggressive tendencies we see in younger species. Zexhai nodded his elongated head in agreement. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans spent most of their time engaged in peaceful activities. They grew food, built beautiful structures, created art and music, and cared for their offspring with a dedication that reminded him of the gentle Thylorean monks. Even more impressive, they had managed to achieve global unity without the devastating wars that plagued most developing civilizations on the surface of Earth. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet flagship, reviewing routine patrol reports. The most exciting incident in the past month had been helping a lost cargo freighter navigate through an asteroid field. His crew spent their days running peaceful escort missions for colony ships and conducting scientific surveys of nearby star systems. "Sir, we're getting another communication request from the alien observers," reported Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. "They want to schedule another cultural exchange meeting." Jake smiled and straightened his uniform. The aliens had been nothing but polite and respectful since first contact 2 years ago. Their requests for information about human society had helped Earth scientists learn about the broader galactic community. "Tell them we'll be happy to meet next week, Doctor. Ben Rodriguez should have his latest anthropological study ready by then." Aboard the observation ship, Zexhai reviewed footage from the proposed meeting location. The human military installation looked more like a university campus than a fortress. Humans in uniform tended gardens between the buildings, played recreational games during their breaks, and spent long hours in what appeared to be classrooms and laboratories. Their weapons were kept locked away in storage facilities, only brought out for carefully controlled training exercises that focused on accuracy and safety rather than combat effectiveness. "Look at this data from their colony worlds," Krill said, highlighting a report on his screen. "Humans have established settlements on 17 planets in the past 50 years. Not one of these colonies was founded through military conquest. They simply found empty worlds and started building homes." The alien observers had watched human colonists with fascination. Unlike the typical expansion patterns of spacefaring species, humans seemed to genuinely enjoy the process of building new communities. Captain Lisa Wang had led the most recent colony mission, and the aliens had recorded her crews working together to construct schools and hospitals, before even finishing their own living quarters. The colonists brought seeds to plant earth flowers, musical instruments to maintain their cultural traditions, and extensive libraries to educate their children. Dr. Kate Sullivan, Earth's lead psychologist, had become a particular subject of interest for the alien behavioral specialists. She spent her time studying ways to help humans adapt to life on different worlds, focusing on mental health and social cohesion. Her research papers, which the aliens had been given access to during cultural exchanges, dealt with topics like homesickness, community building, and maintaining family relationships across interstellar distances. Their entire academic system appears designed to promote cooperation and understanding, Zexhai observed, reading through Dr. Sullivan's latest work. Even their military personnel receive extensive education in diplomacy, cultural sensitivity, and conflict resolution. This was particularly evident in the career of General Ryan Hayes, who commanded Earth's ground forces. His background included degrees in history, philosophy, and international relations. The aliens had watched him give lectures at military academies where he emphasized the importance of protecting civilian populations and minimizing casualties in any theoretical conflicts. His troops spent more time on humanitarian training than weapons practice. The peaceful nature of human society extended to their entertainment and culture. Admiral Chris Thompson, when off-duty, participated in amateur theater productions. Captain Matt Johnson wrote poetry. Commander Sam Davis had gained recognition as a sculptor, creating beautiful works of art that were displayed in public spaces across Earth. Even human children seemed naturally inclined toward cooperation rather than competition. The aliens had observed school systems where young humans learned to work together on projects, share resources, and resolve disputes through discussion rather than force. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, who ran several educational programs, had developed teaching methods that emphasized empathy and understanding between different cultural groups. Their historical records are particularly interesting, Krill noted, pulling up another file. They appear to have overcome their primitive aggressive instincts approximately 4 decades ago. The last significant military conflict ended in what they call the Peace of New Geneva, and since then they've maintained global harmony through their United Earth government. The aliens found this transformation remarkable. Most species required centuries or millennia to evolve beyond warfare, but humans seem to have accomplished this transition in a single generation. Lieutenant Nina Clark, who served as a liaison between Earth's military and civilian governments, exemplified this new human approach to problem solving. Her job consisted mainly of coordinating disaster relief efforts and peacekeeping missions to help resolve minor disputes between colonies. What the observers found most encouraging was humanity's response to first contact itself. Instead of the fear, hostility, or aggressive curiosity that characterized most first encounters, humans had approached the aliens with genuine interest in learning and sharing. President Alex Martinez had personally welcomed the alien delegation, offering to share human knowledge of agriculture, medicine, and engineering in exchange for information about galactic civilization. Dr. Jake Henderson, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had established joint research projects with alien scientists, working to understand biological compatibility between species and develop medical treatments that could help both humans and aliens. His laboratory had become a model of interspecies cooperation, with human and alien researchers working side by side on projects that benefited everyone involved. The economic evidence supported the behavioral observations. Human society appeared to have eliminated poverty, war profiteering, and resource-based conflicts. Captain Ben Davis, who managed interplanetary trade relationships, operated under strict ethical guidelines that prevented exploitation of less developed worlds and emphasized fair exchange of goods and services. As HFY prepared his final report, he felt confident that humanity would make an excellent addition to the Galactic Council's community of civilized species. They had demonstrated all the qualities that made for successful integration: peaceful intentions, cooperative instincts, respect for other cultures, and a genuine desire to contribute positively to galactic society. Recommendation: immediate acceptance as protected species under Council oversight, he dictated to his recording device. Humans represent an ideal example of successful social evolution and should be offered full support in their continued development as a spacefaring civilization. The report would reach the Galactic Council within days, and HFY expected quick approval for humanity's integration into the broader galactic community. It never occurred to him that 43 years was an unusually short time for any species to remain at peace, or that he might be observing humanity during a temporary lull rather than their natural state. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. The colony ship New Horizon had been 3 days out from Earth, carrying 50,000 civilians to establish a new settlement in the Kepler system. Families slept in their berths. Children dreamed of their new homes, and the ship's crew maintained their quiet watch as they had for countless peaceful voyages before. Commander Vexkar of the Krim Dominion watched the human vessel through his targeting systems with casual indifference. This would be another routine demonstration of superior firepower, followed by the usual diplomatic surrender. The Kryn had perfected this approach over decades of expansion. Show overwhelming force, Destroy something valuable, but not too valuable. Then wait for the inevitable capitulation. The energy beams tore through the New Horizons hull like paper. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, but 17 sections were already gone. The ship's communication systems managed to broadcast a distress signal before the secondary explosions began. Captain Maria Santos tried desperately to coordinate evacuation procedures, but the damage was too extensive. The New Horizon broke apart in a shower of metal and frozen atmosphere, scattering its human cargo into the cold vacuum of space. On Earth, General Lisa Wang received the emergency transmission in the middle of a routine staff meeting. The holographic display showed the ship's final moments in stark detail. 50,000 people, including 3,000 children, simply gone. Dr. Kate Sullivan had been aboard, leading a team of child psychologists to help young colonists adapt to their new world. Her research notes would never be completed. President Ryan Hayes arrived at the emergency session within minutes. The war room filled with Earth's military and civilian leadership, all watching the same terrible footage replay across their screens. The aliens had been monitoring human communications as part of their cultural study, and Ambassador HFY immediately reached out to offer mediation services. "This is a tragic misunderstanding," HFY transmitted to Earth's government. "The Kryn Dominion follows standard galactic protocols for territorial expansion. I am authorized to arrange immediate negotiations to prevent further loss of life." The Valorian ambassador felt confident in his role as mediator. He had overseen 43 similar situations over his long career. The pattern was always the same: shock at the initial attack, grief for the losses, then practical acceptance of reality. Younger species learned quickly that resistance against superior technology only led to greater casualties. Admiral Chris Thompson sat quietly in the corner of the war room, watching the casualty report scroll past on his personal display. His hands remained folded in his lap, but something in his expression had changed. The other aliens monitoring human communications noted the shift but interpreted it as a normal grief response. "What are their fleet positions?" Thompson asked suddenly. General Wang looked up from her own reports. "Sir, the Kryn, how many ships do they have in this sector? What's their standard battle formation? How do they typically deploy their forces after an attack like this?" Dr. Alex Martinez, Earth's lead military strategist, pulled up the available intelligence data. The aliens had shared basic information about Kryn capabilities during the cultural exchanges, describing them as a moderately advanced expansionist power, with approximately 200 vessels spread across their territory. They usually keep about 15 to 20 ships in a newly conquered region, Martinez reported. Standard doctrine appears to be overwhelming initial strike followed by occupying key positions to prevent counterattack. Thompson nodded slowly. "And their homeworld?" "Approximately 47 light-years from here, heavily fortified. The Galactic Council estimates their total military strength at around 5 million personnel." Commander Matt Johnson, who had been reviewing shipyard reports, looked up with interest. "How many colony worlds do they control?" 47 confirmed conquests over the past century, Martinez replied. "They follow a pattern of limited warfare followed by tributary status for the conquered species. No genocide, no total destruction. Just political and economic control." The aliens monitoring these conversations found the questions puzzling but not alarming. Younger species often wanted to understand the forces that had defeated them. It was natural for humans to seek information. About their new overlords, Ambassador HFY prepared his standard mediation proposal. The Kryn would receive mining rights to 3 human colony worlds. Humans would pay annual tribute of raw materials and manufactured goods, and Earth would accept a Kryn military base in their home system. In exchange, no further attacks would occur and humans would receive protection under Kryn sovereignty. "The terms are quite reasonable," HFY explained to President Hayes during their emergency conference. "The Kryn are actually more generous than many expanding powers. You will retain local self-governance and cultural autonomy. Most species find the arrangement quite acceptable after the initial adjustment period." President Hayes listened politely. to the proposal, but his response surprised the alien mediator. We need to discuss this with our military leadership and civilian population. Can you give us 72 hours to prepare a formal response? This was unusual. Most species either accepted immediately or tried to negotiate minor details like tribute amounts. Asking for time to discuss suggested humans might be considering resistance. But that made no sense given their peaceful nature and obvious technological disadvantage, Captain. Sam Davis spent those 3 days reviewing manufacturing capabilities across Earth and the colony worlds. Lieutenant Nina Clark coordinated with mining operations, asking detailed questions about production capacity and raw material reserves. Commander Ben Rodriguez met with transport ship captains, discussing cargo capacity and interstellar flight schedules. The alien observers noted increased activity across human space, but interpreted it as preparations for the coming tributary relationship. Obviously, humans were organizing their resources to meet Kryn demands efficiently. The fact that children were being relocated from outer colonies to more secure core worlds seemed like reasonable caution. Dr. Emma Martinez, who managed several research facilities, began asking strange questions about Kryn biology. Her teams wanted to understand alien anatomy, physiology, and environmental requirements. When asked by curious alien observers, she explained that humans wanted to be good hosts for their new Kryn administrators. On the third day, the human leadership reconvened with Ambassador HFY. The aliens expected either unconditional acceptance of Kryn terms or minor requests for modification. Instead, President Hayes delivered a response that baffled the galactic observers. We appreciate your mediation efforts, Ambassador, but we must respectfully decline the Kryn proposal. Earth will not be accepting tributary status or foreign military occupation. We consider the attack on our colony ship an act of war, and we will be responding accordingly. HFY stared at the human leader in confusion. President Hayes, perhaps you don't fully understand the situation. The Kryn possess overwhelming military superiority. Resistance will only result in greater casualties among your people. We understand the situation perfectly, Ambassador. 50,000 of our civilians are dead. We have reviewed the Kryn's military capabilities and territorial positions. Our response will be proportional to their action. General Wang stepped forward. We appreciate the Galactic Council's concern for peace, but this matter is now between humanity and the Kryn Dominion. We advise all neutral parties to maintain safe distances from Kryn territory for the next 12 months. The aliens monitoring the conversation detected subtle changes in human vocal patterns, facial expressions, and body language. Dr. Kate Henderson, humanity's diplomatic liaison, assured them that humans simply needed time to process their grief. Before accepting reality, Admiral Thompson's final comment to the mediation session sent ripples of confusion through the alien observers. Ambassador, you mentioned that the Kryn have conquered 47 worlds using these methods. We find that number very helpful for our planning purposes. Thank you for the intelligence briefing. As the human leadership dispersed from the meeting, they carried themselves differently than they had just days before. The aliens noted the changes but lacked the cultural context to understand their meaning. To Valorian observers, humans simply appeared to be experiencing an extended grief response that would eventually resolve into acceptance. Commander Vexcar of the Kryn Dominion received reports of the failed mediation with satisfaction. Human resistance would make the eventual surrender more complete and serve as a better example to other potential rebels. He ordered his fleet to his standard positions and prepared for what he expected to be a brief punitive campaign followed by unconditional human capitulation. None of the alien observers understood that they had just witnessed the end of humanity's longest period of peace in recorded history. The grief they had detected in human behavior was real, but it was not the grief of defeated victims preparing for surrender. It was the grief of a species that had spent 4 decades learning to live without war, only to discover that war had found them anyway. The transformation began at dawn on Earth, but the alien observers initially missed its significance. Ambassador HFY watched through his sensors as humans across the planet started what appeared to be an unusually large construction project. Factories that had been producing civilian goods suddenly retooled their assembly lines for unknown purposes. The change seemed coordinated, but the aliens assumed it was some kind of cultural response to grief. Commander Matt Johnson stood in the center of Detroit's largest manufacturing complex, watching as workers dismantled the production line that had been making personal transportation vehicles just hours before. New machinery arrived on massive transport trucks, equipment that the factory databases listed under industrial classifications the aliens had never seen before. The workers moved with a precision that suggested they had practiced this conversion many times, though the alien observers had no record of such drills. "Timeline?" Johnson asked his production supervisor. 72 hours to full operational status, sir. We have teams working around the clock." Similar scenes played out across Earth and the colony worlds. Captain Sam Davis coordinated the transformation of agricultural processing plants, mining equipment manufacturers, and even recreational vehicle factories. The aliens watched construction robots that had been building parks and schools suddenly redirect their efforts toward massive underground facilities. The purpose of these installations remained unclear, but humans seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Dr. Emma Rodriguez lead teams that began modifying everything from farming equipment to space construction machinery. The aliens observed humans working with tools and materials they had never displayed during the cultural exchange programs. Welding equipment designed for artistic metalwork was being used to build components that looked nothing like sculpture. Mining lasers were being removed from asteroid processing ships and installed on platforms the aliens couldn't identify. The most puzzling aspect was the coordination. Humans across dozens of worlds moved in perfect synchronization without any apparent central command structure. Captain Ben Davis received supply requests from settlements he had never heard of. Yet somehow every request was filled immediately from stockpiles that seemed to appear overnight. The logistics network operated with an efficiency that should have been impossible for a species without telepathic abilities. "Sub-Commander Krill, are you seeing this communication traffic?" Ambassador Zexhai asked, reviewing the intercepted human transmissions. "Yes, sir. The volume has increased by 800% since the mediation ended. But most of the messages are encoded using systems we haven't encountered before. The communications that the aliens could decode were even more confusing." Humans discussed concepts like total mobilization, strategic reserves, and war footing as if these were familiar terms. Lieutenant Nina Clark's messages referenced something called Protocol 7 that seemed to trigger automatic responses from facilities across human space. Within hours of the protocol activation, every human settlement had begun the same mysterious transformation. Even human children participated in ways the aliens found disturbing. Schools emptied as young humans joined their parents in the conversion activities. But instead of the confusion and fear the aliens expected to see in a peaceful species under stress, the children worked with calm efficiency. They seemed to know exactly what their role was in the larger effort, though they had received no visible training for these tasks. Dr. Kate Henderson, humanities diplomatic liaison, continued to assure the alien observers that humans were simply adjusting to new circumstances. When pressed for details about the massive construction projects, she explained that humans were preparing for an extended negotiation period and wanted to demonstrate their industrial capabilities to potential alien partners, but the aliens began discovering disturbing information when they attempted to verify human historical records. Captain Lisa Wang's personnel file contained references to military training programs that supposedly hadn't existed for 40 years. Admiral Chris Thompson's education included courses in strategic planning and force projection that were absent from the civilian curriculum. The aliens had been shown during cultural exchanges. The most unsettling discovery came when alien monitoring systems accidentally accessed databases that humans had not previously shared. The files contained detailed analyses of alien military capabilities, tactical assessments of various species' weaknesses, and strategic evaluations of galactic political relationships. The documents were dated from throughout the supposed peace period, suggesting humans had been gathering military intelligence for decades while presenting themselves as a purely peaceful civilization. General Ryan Hayes' personal files contained thousands of documents about historical human conflicts. The aliens read references to events called World War II, the Napoleonic campaigns, and Operation Desert Storm with growing confusion. These appeared to be military operations from human history, but according to the cultural information humans had shared, their species had no experience with large-scale warfare. Commander Matt Johnson's conversion projects became even more mysterious. As the aliens watched the final products emerge from the modified factories, the items looked like components for some kind of advanced machinery, but they didn't match any known industrial or scientific equipment in the galactic databases. When assembled, they formed structures that seemed designed for purposes the aliens couldn't identify. Dr. Alex Martinez appeared frequently in the intercepted communications, coordinating efforts across multiple star systems. His messages contained technical specifications and deployment schedules that suggested humans were building something massive and complex. The timeline indicated completion within 6 months, though the aliens had no idea what would be finished by then. The Kryn Dominion, meanwhile, celebrated their easy victory. Commander Vexkar reported to his superiors that human resistance had collapsed as expected. The mysterious industrial activity was obviously preparation for tributary status. Conquered species often tried to impress their new overlords with displays of productivity. The Kryn fleet maintained standard positions. Confident that human capitulation was imminent, Ambassador Zexhai tried repeatedly to establish communication with human leadership, offering to facilitate final surrender negotiations. The responses he received were polite but evasive. President Hayes assured him that humans were working toward a resolution but needed additional time to complete preparations. The alien mediator interpreted this as face-saving behavior humans wanted. To appear dignified in defeat. Captain Sam Davis coordinated what humans called redeployment of their civilian fleet. Cargo vessels, passenger transports, and even scientific research ships began moving between systems in patterns that made no sense for normal commerce. The aliens noted that many ships carried sealed containers whose contents were not declared in standard manifests. When questioned, humans explained they were relocating resources for better efficiency under the coming tributary arrangement. The underground facilities neared completion across human space, but their purpose remained unclear. The construction involved massive amounts of metal, electronics, and energy systems being installed in hidden locations. Dr. Emma Rodriguez supervised teams that worked with materials the aliens didn't recognize, following blueprints that seemed to have been prepared years in advance. Lieutenant Nina Clark's communications revealed that humans had been accessing archived military documents from their historical databases. The files contained detailed information about tactics, strategies, and weapon systems from conflicts the aliens thought had never occurred. References to amphibious assault, strategic bombing, and unconditional surrender appeared frequently. In human planning documents, most disturbing were the biological and psychological profiles humans had compiled about the Kryn and other alien species. The documents showed detailed analysis of alien anatomy, behavior patterns, and cultural weaknesses. The information was far more comprehensive than anything humans could have gathered during peaceful cultural exchanges, suggesting a level of intelligence gathering that violated the spirit, if not the letter, of diplomatic protocols. The 6-month deadline approached. The alien observers realized they had fundamentally misunderstood what they were witnessing. The industrial transformation wasn't preparation for surrender. It was preparation for something the peaceful humans should have had no knowledge of or capability for. But by the time Ambassador Zexhai recognized the pattern, it was already too late to warn anyone was coming. The attack began exactly 6 months after the New Horizon had been destroyed. At 0600 Earth Standard Time, Commander Vexkar was reviewing routine patrol reports when his sensors detected movement in the outer system. What appeared to be human Cargo vessels had dropped out of hyperspace near the edge of Kryn territory, but something was wrong with their energy signatures. Admiral Chris Thompson stood on the bridge of what the aliens had classified as a research vessel for the past 3 years. The ship's hull began to shift and reconfigure as hidden panels slid away to reveal weapon systems that violated several assumptions about human technology. The peaceful exploration ship transformed into something else entirely, bristling with armaments that had been concealed within its seemingly civilian structure. "All vessels report ready status," Thompson announced calmly into his communications system. Around him, hundreds of ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers, passenger transports, and scientific platforms revealed their true nature. The human civilian fleet had been a military force in hiding all along. Captain Jake Morrison's ship, which the Kryn had dismissed as a primitive transport, opened what humans called gun ports along its sides. The weapons that emerged fired projectiles at velocities that should have been impossible according to known physics. The projectiles moved so fast that Kryn defensive systems couldn't track them, let alone intercept them. Commander Vexkar watched in horror as his forward scouts simply disappeared. No explosions, no debris, just ships that were there one moment and gone the next. The human weapons seemed to erase targets from existence rather than merely destroying them. His tactical computers couldn't identify the technology being used, or develop countermeasures, but the weapons were only the beginning of Vexkar's nightmare. The human ships moved in formations that defied everything the Kryn understood about space warfare. Instead of the predictable fleet engagements that characterized galactic conflicts, human forces appeared simultaneously in dozens of locations throughout Kryn space. They had somehow coordinated attacks across multiple star systems with timing so precise it seemed impossible. Captain Sam Davis led a boarding party that seized a Kryn supply depot in the Outer Rim. But instead of the ceremonial capture that usually marked the end of resistance, the humans fought with a brutality that shocked the alien observers. They moved through the station room by room, systematically eliminating every Kryn defender without offering surrender terms or taking prisoners. General Lisa Wang coordinated what humans called deep strike operations against targets the Kryn had considered untouchable. Heavily fortified command centers, supply bases hidden in asteroid fields, and communication relays and remote systems all came under simultaneous attack. The humans had spent months mapping every Kryn installation and now struck them all at once. Ambassador Zexhai frantically tried to establish communications with both sides to arrange a ceasefire. The Kryn responded with desperate pleas for intervention, claiming that humans were violating every principle of civilized warfare. The human responses were polite but inflexible. They would continue until they achieved unconditional surrender. The phrase meant nothing to the alien mediators, who had never encountered a species that fought for anything other than political objectives or territorial control. But as they watched human forces operate, the aliens began to understand that humans weren't trying to conquer Kryn territory or force a favorable treaty. They were systematically destroying the Kryn's ability to wage war at all. Commander Matt Johnson's engineering teams had spent months studying Kryn technology during the so-called cultural exchanges. Now they used that knowledge to target the specific weaknesses in Kryn ships and installations. Human weapons were designed not just to defeat Kryn defenses, but to exploit vulnerabilities that the Kryn didn't even know they had. Dr. Emma Rodriguez's biological research proved its true purpose as human forces deployed weapons specifically designed to affect Kryn physiology. The aliens realized that every medical cooperation project had been gathering intelligence for military applications. Humans had spent years learning how to kill Kryn more effectively. The most terrifying aspect was the humans' complete disregard for traditional rules of engagement. When Kryn forces retreated to defensive positions, humans pursued them relentlessly across interstellar space. Captain Ben Davis coordinated pursuit fleets that hunted down fleeing Kryn ships like predators tracking wounded prey. No retreat was far enough. No hiding place secure enough to escape human attention. Lieutenant Nina Clark's communications intercepts revealed that humans had been monitoring Kryn military frequencies for years. They knew Kryn tactical procedures better than some Kryn commanders did. Every attempted retreat or regrouping effort was anticipated and countered before it could begin. The Kryn tried to surrender individual installations and fleets, hoping to preserve some forces for future negotiations. But humans rejected every surrender attempt. Admiral Thompson's response to a Kryn commander's offer to negotiate was simple. Unconditional surrender means your entire civilization lays down arms permanently, not individual units surrendering when convenient. Dr. Alex Martinez's strategic planning became clear as human forces demonstrated capabilities that had been hidden for decades. The peaceful colonization missions had established supply bases throughout the galaxy. The cultural exchange programs had provided detailed intelligence on every major alien civilization. The humanitarian aid missions had created logistics networks that now supported military operations across hundreds of star systems. Commander Vexkar found himself commanding a fleet that was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought like nothing in galactic history. Human forces didn't capture territory to hold it. They destroyed everything of military value and moved on. They didn't seek to control populations, they eliminated the infrastructure that supported military operations. Captain Lisa Wang led ground forces that moved through Kryn installations with mechanical precision. Her troops had trained for scenarios that supposedly peaceful humans should never have encountered. They cleared runes, secured objectives, and neutralized resistance with techniques that suggested centuries of warfare experience rather than 4 decades of peace. The aliens monitoring the conflict realized that humans had never stopped being warriors. They had simply been taking a brief rest. The peaceful activities they had observed were real, but they existed alongside a military capability that had been carefully maintained and constantly improved even during the so-called peace period. Ambassador Zexhai reported to the Galactic Council that humans were demonstrating warfare capabilities that exceeded anything in the galactic databases. They fought not to achieve limited political objectives, but to completely eliminate enemy military potential. The concept of total war was foreign to galactic civilization, but humans seemed to consider it the natural way to resolve conflicts. The Kryn Dominion, which had conquered 47 worlds through limited warfare and intimidation, found itself facing an enemy that considered warfare a problem to be solved permanently. Human forces pursued every Kryn military unit, destroyed every weapons facility, and eliminated every command structure with methodical thoroughness. As human fleets moved deeper into Kryn space, the alien observers finally understood the magnitude of their error. The peaceful, cooperative species they had recommended for galactic integration was actually the most dangerous military force any of them had ever encountered. And the humans were just getting started. The final phase began when human forces reached the Kryn homeworld. Ambassador Zexhai watched through his sensors as Admiral Chris Thompson's fleet surrounded the heavily fortified planet that had served as the center of the Kryn Dominion for over 2 centuries. The alien observers expected a prolonged siege, negotiations, or at least some attempt to minimize civilian casualties. Instead, they witnessed something that would haunt galactic civilization for generations. Commander Matt Johnson coordinated the systematic dismantling of Kryn orbital defenses with surgical precision. The humans didn't bombard the installations into rubble, they carefully disabled each weapon system, communication array, and defensive platform one by one. Every piece of military infrastructure was neutralized while civilian areas remained untouched. The aliens realized that humans could have destroyed the planet entirely, but chose instead to demonstrate absolute control. General Lisa Wang's ground forces landed on the Kryn homeworld without firing a single shot at civilian targets. They moved through the capital city like a flood, surrounding government buildings, military academies, weapons factories, and command centers simultaneously. The precision of their operation revealed months of planning based on intelligence that should have been impossible for any foreign power to gather. Dr. Alex Martinez's strategic coordination became terrifyingly clear as human forces executed the final phase of what they called complete pacification. Every Kryn military leader was captured or killed within a 6-hour period. Every weapons storage facility was secured. Every military training center was occupied. The Kryn's ability to wage war didn't just end, it was surgically removed from their civilization. Captain Sam Davis led the teams that confiscated every piece of military equipment on 47 conquered worlds. The operation occurred simultaneously across the entire Kryn dominion, requiring coordination that defied everything the aliens understood about logistics and communication. Human forces appeared to know the location of every hidden weapons cache, every secret military installation, every backup command center. The most horrifying aspect was the humans' complete knowledge of Kryn society and military structure. Lieutenant Nina Clark's teams captured classified documents that revealed the extent of human intelligence gathering over the past 3 years. The so-called cultural exchange programs had been comprehensive espionage operations. Humans had infiltrated every level of Kryn society while presenting themselves as peaceful researchers. Commander Vexkar found himself facing Captain Ben Davis in the ruins of his command center. The human officer offered terms that weren't really terms at all: complete disarmament, permanent occupation of all military facilities, and absolute prohibition on weapons research or military training. The Kryn commander asked what would happen to his people if they refused. "Nothing bad will happen to your people," Davis replied calmly. "But your civilization will never be capable of threatening anyone again. That's not negotiable." The Kryn Dominion ceased to exist as a military power within 18 months. The aliens watched in stunned silence as humans accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history: the complete military defeat of an advanced spacefaring civilization. The Kryn weren't exterminated or enslaved. They were simply neutered, rendered permanently incapable of aggression. Ambassador Zex High compiled his final report with trembling appendages. The species he had recommended for immediate integration into galactic society had just demonstrated military capabilities that exceeded anything in the Council's databases. More terrifying than their weapons or tactics was their complete understanding of warfare as a tool for achieving permanent solutions to security threats. Dr. Emma Rodriguez's biological research had enabled humans to develop non-lethal weapons, specifically designed to incapacitate Kryn physiology. The aliens realized that every medical cooperation project had been preparation for conquest. Humans had spent years learning not just how to kill their enemies, but how to defeat them without unnecessary casualties, making their victory even more complete. President Ryan Hayes addressed the galactic community from Earth's capital, Hissa. Words carried across the galaxy by communication networks the aliens hadn't known humans possessed. His speech was calm, reasonable, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. The Kryn Dominion attacked and murdered 50,000 human civilians. Hayes explained to the assembled alien representatives, "Our response was proportional by human standards. We eliminated their ability to threaten anyone again. This is how humanity deals with those who target our innocent people." The phrase, "proportional by human standards," sent waves of fear through every alien civilization. If the complete military destruction of a galactic power was considered proportional, what would humans consider excessive? Dr. Kate Henderson provided historical context that made the alien situation even worse. She calmly referenced events from human history, conflicts the aliens had thought were fictional or greatly exaggerated. The documentation she presented proved that humanity had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare, developing strategies and technologies for conflicts on scales the galaxy had never imagined. General Wang concluded the presentation with information that shattered every assumption about human military capability. The forces used against the Kryn represented less than 20% of humanity's available military strength. The peaceful colonies the aliens had observed were actually fortress worlds. The civilian fleet was actually the largest military force in the known galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison's ships began patrolling the former Kryn territory. establishing permanent monitoring stations to prevent any resurgence of military activity. The humans made it clear that their occupation would continue indefinitely. The Kryn were free to live their lives, pursue art and science, and develop their culture, but they would never again possess the means to wage war. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address the human situation. Ambassador Zexhi's testimony painted a picture of a species that had hidden its true nature for decades while gathering intelligence on every major galactic power. The peaceful cultural exchanges had been reconnaissance missions. The humanitarian aid programs had been establishing supply networks for military operations. Most terrifying was the realization that humanity's 43-year peace period wasn't their natural state. It was an anomaly. Dr. Martinez's historical data revealed that humans had been continuously at war for most of their recorded history. The brief period of peace the aliens had observed was the longest stretch without major conflict in human civilization. Admiral Thompson's fleet returned to Earth space, but the human military maintained its expanded presence throughout the galaxy. Human bases appeared in systems that had been considered strategically unimportant, creating a network of monitoring stations and supply depots that could support operations anywhere in known space. The aliens finally understood that they hadn't been observing a peaceful species learning about galactic civilization. They had been watched by apex predators who were evaluating potential threats and gathering intelligence for future operations. Every human smile during cultural exchanges had been backed by the capacity for total warfare, Captain Davis established. The final human installation on the former Kryn homeworld, a memorial to the 50,000 civilians who had died aboard the New Horizon. The inscription was simple: they were our people. We do not forget, we do not forgive, we do not allow repetition. Humanity returned to their art, music, and literature. Dr. Amy Carter resumed her biological research. Children played in parks and attended schools. But now every alien in the galaxy understood that behind humanity's civilized exterior lay something more dangerous than they had ever imagined. A species that considered peace a temporary condition and war the natural solution to existential threats. The Galactic Council quietly amended humanity's classification from peaceful species suitable for integration to apex predator requiring extreme diplomatic caution. All future contact with humanity would emphasize peaceful intentions and absolute respect for human civilians. The aliens had learned that disturbing humanity's peace came with consequences no galactic civilization could survive.